Alright, we back. Welcome to episode 1 of Retrospective Hip Hop. In this series, I'm going to be covering the main storyline of hip hop, with a few detours along the way, starting from 2017. If you're wondering why I chose that year specifically, personally, I believe hip hop peaked in 2018. And I mean that in every possible way. Now look, I know you're looking at your little phone screen or your laptop screen all crazy. Probably already clicked off the video, and if so, it's all good, I understand. But partially the point of this video series is to go back and examine and analyze all the stuff that was going on that year. Because it was a lot, it was wild. So that's pretty much the gist of what this video series is going to be about. I'm going to be going over the music, the artists, the albums, the lyrics, the behind the scenes, shady music industry shit, and of course, the bullshit. And hopefully, by the end of this series, you'll understand how and why hip-hop peaked in 2018. But first, we have to start at 2017, when Kendrick Lamar dropped Humble. Timestamps in the description, by the way. Let's go. There comes a time in all of the biggest artists' careers when they release that one project, that one body of work that launches them into the higher echelon of mainstream. Could be their first project, could be their 8th, 9th, 10th, could be their last. Whether that be Wayne with the Carter 3, Nicki, Pink Friday, YG, My Crazy Life, Future, Dirty Sprite 2, Travis Scott, Rodeo, Cole with Forest Hills Drive, and one of my favorite examples, Meek Mill, Dreams Worth More Than Money. It would have been the perfect example, except it got derailed by, well, you know. Well, now it's time for King Kendrick to shine. Kendrick dropped The Heart Part 4 on March 23rd, 2017, and the last line of the song was him announcing that something was coming on April the 7th, and most people assumed that meant the album was dropping. The first single from Damn, titled Humble, was released a week later on March 30th. Then, April the 7th came with no album release, and fans were pissed. Anthony Top Dog Tiffith responded to fans, and one fan proposed that the cover art for the new single leaked early, so they moved the song up by a week. What we did get on the 7th was the actual announcement for the album, which was officially released April 14th, 2017. Joey Badass did drop his album on April the 7th, which was a very good album, and you guys should check it out. And though his project did come out first, there is a reason I skipped him and went right to Kendrick's album, which I'll get to in a second. So of course, there's the artwork for Damn, showing Kendrick in somewhat of a transit state. The designer of the artwork, whose name is Vlad Sepetov, notes that he wanted it to be loud and abrasive, which explains why the font for the album title is so unusually big, and so is the parental advisory sticker. This is actually something I'll be touching on here and there throughout the whole series of these videos, because Kendrick is one of 4 people, who I'll eventually get to, that set the tone for the albums that came out in the past 3 or 4 years that I consider to be the best of the best. Now obviously, Kendrick is not the first artist to have the album title be gigantic lettering, but as you'll see throughout the series, he absolutely started the trend. And this is one of 3 things that set the precedent for what I believe are these artists' biggest and best projects. So to keep this point drilled into your heads, I'm going to keep a score for every big font album title, especially if it's just one word, and possibly if it's self-titled, but we'll probably keep that last one for a very special artist later in the series. With all that being said, let's get into the album. So real quick, I just want to state my own biases, just so you all know where I stand when I'm talking about him in the album. He's one of my favorite rappers, definitely one of the GOATs, and definitely top 10, dead or alive. So starting off the album is somewhat of a skit that asks the question, is it wickedness? Is it weakness? You decide. Are we gonna live or die? And the wicked or weakness thing is a theme I think he repeats throughout the album, and throughout the things he said he's been doing in the life he lives now. But then Kendrick tells a story of seeing a blind woman walking around, quote unquote, looking for something. And after watching her struggle, he decides to go help her out. And when he asks her what she's lost, she ends up shooting him. Lil Yachty had his own reaction to this.
Hold on now. Hold on, Kendrick.
So I was taking a walk the other day.
Where you going? Where you going, Kendrick? Okay, where you going? Where you going? Where you
I seen
going?
a woman,
What she look like? What she?
a blind woman,
Okay, okay.
pacing up and down the sidewalk.
Oh, all right.
She seemed to be a bit frustrated,
What's wrong with her, Kendrick? What happened?
as if she had dropped something and having a hard time finding it.
What's up?
So
And the song ends with an audio clip of Fox News reporters Eric Bolling and Kimberly, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, expressing their disdain for Kendrick's performance at the 2015 BET Awards, where he performed alright. And they specifically didn't like the part where he said, "And we hate the popo, one kills in the street, faux show." Next up is DNA, which is the first proper song on the album. And on it, Kendrick lets us know what he's made of and what's in his DNA. He mentions his loyalty, which is a song and a theme of the album. And you might notice when listening to this album, there's recurring themes of religion, his newfound money and fame, his family, and prayers, and also him flaunting his money. I'll be keeping a score of the religious themes on this album, for at least the parts where I think they're important, and also the idea of prayer, and also Kendrick flaunting his brand new wealth. I really love these lines. He makes quite a few religious references on this song. It's a great song though, bar heavy. Next up is Yah. Now this is actually pretty clever because Yah is something that a lot of the new age rappers say a lot, Yah, 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 on their songs. But what he's actually talking about is Yahweh, which translates to God. There's also the first of 5 songs where rapper DJ Kid Capri does a little intro. He said in an interview that Kendrick asked him to come in and say all the lines that he says on the album. And he also mentions there's a lot of vocals that he did that Kendrick didn't use, and that he believes Kendrick is going to use them at a later date. This information somewhat coincides with a theory that was going on back in 2017 right after Damn dropped, that there was going to be a follow-up album because of how the album ended. People thought there was 2 sides to Damn, but I'll get to that later. But anyways, back to the actual song. He mentions Fox News again, specifically responding to Geraldo Rivera, who Kendrick claims was using his name for views by criticizing his BET performance, while also giving another side saying his niece was at home cheering him on. Geraldo had this to say in response. He says he's an Israelite, who are known as the chosen ones, and that he's not black anymore, and not to call him black anymore, because it's only a color, and it ain't facts no more. And also mentions his cousin Carl, who was very important to this album, who called partially to give him some words of encouragement. And lastly, Kendrick mentions the curses from Deuteronomy, from not following God's 10 commandments on the slab that Moses brought back. Very scary song, especially in these times, but amazing song though. Next up is Element. And one of the reasons I said this is Kendrick's moment is partially because this was his time to go more mainstream. And Element, among most of the other songs, are great examples, most especially in Element's hook and instrumental. To start off, the song Kid Capri returns and introduces a new Kendrick persona, Kung Fu Kenny. He's got Kendrick, K-Dot, King Kendrick, but Kendrick fully embraced Kung Fu Kenny, from the music videos all the way to the tour. Kung Fu Kenny arrives with much aggression and lets us know he's willing to do away with the Bible's warning of revenge and go eye for an eye. Here's his first mention on the album of no one praying for him, and in this case it's because his grandma dead. There you go, 30 million later. He leads up the verse with this catchy hook and this beautiful Pac reference, and he ends the verse referencing To Pimp a Butterfly, talking about how people, even black people, tore it apart at the time, which of course he also did on The Hard Part 4. Speaking of the similarities between this and The Hard Part 4, a version of this song leaked, and it showed that he was throwing some pretty obvious shots at Big Sean, who I will get to later on in the track list. I think you know what song I'm talking about. Anyways, next up, Feel. I actually really like this song. I like all the songs, but this is just one of my least favorite. It's still good though. He reiterates that nobody's praying for him. He explains that he feels that he's at his wit's end, feels people watching him, waiting on him, waiting to take him out, waiting to take his money. And while he feels dominance over everybody, at the end of the day, ain't nobody praying. Next up is Loyalty, featuring the first of only 3 guest features on the album, Miss Fenty herself. This was the second single on the album, and obviously one of the more mainstream sounding songs. Kendrick and Robin are apparently geeked and fired up, trading verses explaining how real and loyal they are, and how they need loyalty in their lives. Rihanna, of course, still playing with that Illuminati shit, talking about secret societies. Near the end of the song, she asks where your loyalties lie, and Kendrick ends her train of thoughts by letting us know that's what God's for. And finally, the song ends with her saying that it's so hard to be humble, which is a reference to the upcoming song that's 2 tracks away, which I always thought was a little weird that she brought up humble, but it wasn't next on the track list, but I'm sure it was done on purpose, so whatever. Next up is Pride. Now at the beginning of the song, you hear that bird sound effect that you heard from The Hard Part 4, the and the intro tells us that Love, which is a song from the album, is gonna get you killed, but Pride's gonna be the death of you and you and me and you and you and me and you and me and you and me. I love this line. He mentions being humble and how he can't fake it just because you're insecure. And in the second verse, he envisions what a perfect world would look and feel like. He ends it by saying he will bring all the religions together just to tell them that they ain't shit, but he, meaning God, has been perfect. And this song, of course, leads into humble. Now, I'd like to dedicate special time to this song, specifically because even though there might still be some doubters and non-believers, this is absolutely, indiscriminately, a diss towards Big Sean. Please let me know in the comments if I'm tripping, even though I know I'm not. I'd like to first point out a couple things. First off, Michael made this beat, and he revealed that he originally made it for Gucci Mane, who was still locked up at the time and was about to be released, but it ended up going to Kendrick. All three of them ended up being on Mike's album, Ransom 2, where Kung Fu Kenny returned. Also, in the music video, the open lines are, "Wicked or weakness, you gotta see this," which is a callback to the first song on the album, Blood. But on the album version, he switched it up and made the official lyrics say, "Nobody pray for me, it been that day for me," referencing the other songs he mentioned prayer on earlier in the album, but more specifically on the song Element, where he mentioned how all his grandmothers were dead, and therefore, ain't nobody praying for him. So just wanted to point that out. As far as the disses, My Left Stroke just went viral. The left stroke is obviously referring to the Heart Part 4, which had murderous bars aimed at Big Sean and Drake. Then he adds onto that by saying, "Right stroke put Lil Baby in a spiral. The right stroke is humble." Next, the hook is him repeatedly saying, "Lil bitch, sit down, be humble." Now who else is that repeatedly says "Lil bitch" all the time? Anyways, in the second verse he says, "Who the fuck that nigga think he frontin' on man? Get the fuck off my stage, I'm the Sandman. Get the fuck off my dick, that ain't right." Now I believe this is in reference to Big Sean dissing him on No More Interviews, due to the fact that he was upset that people were saying Kendrick killed him on Control. Lastly, he says, "I make a play fucking up your whole life." Now at the time this might seem like a normal diss, but now as of 2020, Big Sean himself admitted that for the past couple years, he had been depressed, and for a while he wasn't able to get his mojo back as far as rapping, and that he wasn't able to get in the groove of making songs that he really felt worthy of. Damn, Kendrick. Damn. Next up is Lust. And this song is very sad because in a lot of ways, the last verse was foreshadowing a lot, but at the same time, show that things sadly don't ever really change that much. In the first verse, Kendrick paints a picture of your average everyday Negro in a repeated cycle, watching TV, doing some drugs, criminal activities, finding some girl to fuck, skipping out on work. Then he tells the other side of the story of a queen putting her makeup on, masturbating, arguing with her man, credit card scamming, going out with her friends, popping pills. Both not very good things to be doing, especially every single day. But at the end of both cycles, Kendrick says, "It's whatever, just make it count." Lastly, he speaks about the sorrows of the 2016 election and speaks about how that might turn into going out in the streets and protesting about it, but eventually it'll all subside. We'll all go back to our usual schedule, somewhat akin to summer 2020. Quite the conundrum. Now comes Love, which is a great placement after Lust. And that's how the song starts, asking you, love or lust. And it featured, at the time, new TDE signee, Zakari. I like the song, but there's not really much special about it in my opinion, other than it being a radio-friendly song. So moving along to Triple X, with the third and final feature featuring Irish rock band U2. A lot of people were skeptical of this song when they first saw it on the track list because of U2, but it actually turned out really good, in my opinion at least. It starts off very political, saying, "America, God bless you if it's good to you," which it very much is to a lot of people, and quite the opposite for a lot of others. The beat starts off real dreamy, and then transitions into a very menacing instrumental, and I think this song perfectly personifies Kendrick's attitude on the cover art of Damn, as it's portraying Kendrick in a very don't give a fuck mind state, which is what a lot of people in America, specifically black people, are in that mind state that causes them to commit crimes and be desensitized to killings. Johnny makes an appearance again after Kendrick mentioned the fictional character back on the song Ronald Reagan era. He then tells the story of getting a phone call from a friend telling Kendrick that his son was killed over insufficient funds, and was looking to Kendrick for guidance, probably hoping Kendrick would have a sane, rational way to cope, but Kendrick can't sugarcoat it. So he goes back to the idea of eye for an eye that he mentioned on Element and tells the man that if someone kills one of his, then one of theirs is getting killed. This line always really stuck with me. He ends this verse telling the man he should chip the dude, then throw the blower in his lap, and then tells him he has to hang out because he has to go speak at a convention, specifically gun control. Damn, Kendrick. Damn. Anyways, he then proceeds to go on a stream of consciousness on criticizing America on everything from war to border control to hindsight view of having Barack to switching over to Donald Trump to America putting African Americans in these situations where the only option they feel they have is to go commit crime to survive, and then in turn make us seem like the villains. Kendrick again calls out Fox News for that specifically. This is a great line also, and he caps this verse off by saying, America's a reflection of me. That's what a mirror does. Fear. Top 3 song on the album in my opinion. Just like Pride, if you've heard The Heart Part 4, you might recognize the instrumental from when Kendrick started getting hostile on that record. Amazing beat, especially with whatever high-pitched sound that is that keeps coming back. You know, like dun 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 dun, and the hungry all my life. In this song, Kendrick tackles 3 ages in his life that he experienced true fear. It starts out with a call from his cousin Carl that he mentioned back on the song Yah, and brings back up the curse of Deuteronomy, and tells Kendrick he's praying for him, followed by Kendrick asking God why he has to suffer pain and bleed, and pleads with God to burn the earth because it's no more. Then it has that demonic rewinded vocals, those same lines. At age 7, his biggest fear was his mother, that instilled fear in him with threats of ass whoopings, for various reasons. This line delivery was perfect. He ends the verse with his mother proclaiming that he'll fear her if he don't fear nothing else. On the hook, Kendrick contemplates beating out his fears by smoking them away and taking 2 puffs, but we all know that highs don't last that long, and eventually you'll come back to reality. He also introduces a new Life's a Bitch bar that rappers love to use. Age 17, his fear was an early and tragic death that could have came from an assortment of places while growing up in the hood, such as a simple trip to the store, wearing the wrong colors, somebody snitching on him messing with women, thinking he could just walk through whatever area, drug addicts, acting out a character like he stayed on You Ain't Gotta Lie off of To Paper Butterfly. I always thought this description was very graphic, probably because of the use of the word snap when talking about getting injured from police brutality. At 27, one of his biggest fears was finance-based. By the way, if you didn't notice, his fears change every 10 years. 7, 17, 27. Anyways, he questions all of his success and the praise that he gets from the consumers, wondering if it's all some cheap joke from God, thinking it might sometime be taken away from him and send him back to the life that he successfully avoided, wondering if God would do him like he did Job and take everything away to see if Kendrick would still be a loyal servant if his newfound life was taken away. He ponders how Rihanna felt when it was reported back in 2015 that her accountant lost a big sum of her money and then skipped out without paying her the money that she was owed. Kendrick says he would have probably killed somebody if that happened to him. Another fear was him not upholding his city in a respectful and righteous manner. I love that he addresses this because it's been a big topic with him about how the fans and the media overhype some of his lyrics, sometimes taking the simplest line and making some of his simple lines into entire think pieces, which by the way I think this album he was purposely doing that on. In his last verse, he mentions all of his fears and manages to fit in the 7 of the track names from the album into it, while just making references to 3 of the other ones. And finally, this is only on the digital version, but it shows the full extent of what his cousin Carl was talking to him on the phone about. Very quickly moving on from those type of emotions, Kendrick happily lets us know what God feels like. And apparently one thing that comes with it is laughing to the bank like aha. It took me a little while to get adjusted to this song because the hook is a little strange even for Kendrick, but he's obviously conveying a point of how his money, I guess specifically $30 million, as far as he tells it, has him feeling very euphoric and powerful, like God. In the verse he still speaks about how he wanted to live that life, being a gunman, but he cleverly switches up and says he's shooting up the charts, meaning his songs are hidden, so I guess it all worked out. Again, I like the whole album, but this is lower on the rake of my favorites. Still a cool little flex track, and an interesting exploration to apparently what God feel like. Last song, Duckworth, which is Kendrick's real last name, and Lamar is his middle name, if you didn't know. And see, there's a great thing that's got to come out of this series, is that we can examine and discuss the big and the little things that people seem to love to ignore. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I calling Kendrick a snitch, but the first time I heard this song, all I could think about was how Kendrick just told a story on record of, I guess you would call him Kendrick's boss or whatever, Anthony Top Dog Tiffith, robbing a chicken joint back in the day, and how he almost killed Kendrick's dad but decided not to because he gave him free chicken. Now I am fully aware of the law, statute of limitation, but I'm not sure it counts for robberies. One of you can comment and let me know if it does or if it doesn't. But even if it doesn't, I just always thought it was funny that he told him like that. And Kendrick claims Top Dog didn't know about the song until after it was recorded and he played it for him, so I guess it was all good. And obviously the song came out, so it's all good, I guess. The song is amazing though, especially that sample, the God. One other thing I want to point out about this last song is, at the end of the song, Kendrick explains what might have happened if Top Dog killed his dad. He mentioned a couple of things, but Kendrick said he might have died in a gunfight. I guess he was saying gunfight, which at that point, everything reversed, like Kid Capri was saying, put it in reverse, and rewind it all the way back to the first song, Blood. And of course, he supposedly did die at the end of that song, not by a gunfight, but by gunfire. So this leads me into the next segment, after release. So yes, this album could be looked at as some sort of infinite loop, or how about in reverse? Yeah, it was theorized after the album came out that it actually could be listened to in reverse and have a whole new meaning. I'm not sure if that was actually the original intention, but a couple months after release, Kendrick did an interview that said if you did play in reverse, you wouldn't exactly get a new story, but you would get a new vibe and a feeling. And a couple months after that statement, they of course released a collector's edition with a new black and white cover art and a reverse track list. So there you go. Also, after the album released, Kendrick has stated in an IG Live video clip that he had more music.
My kinfolk family, kinfolk clan, alright? Y'all take care, we're gonna continue to bang this. I got some more music, you dig what I'm saying?
Which fans were already speculating on before the album came out, due to vague hints that they thought Kendrick was throwing out. But of course, the next day Kendrick tweeted out that there was none coming. I personally think there was, but I believe the people over at TDE saw how successful Damn already was, and didn't want to overshadow or spoil the hype that Damn was generating. And I'll save this point for another video, but it always seemed like they run TDE like a dictatorship over there. So if he did have more music, they most likely shut it down and told Kendrick to publicly backtrack. So yeah, like I said in the beginning of the video, this was his catapult album, kind of like the Carter 3 for example. And just like Wayne, Kendrick went on a run of features and verses all through 2017, and I'll cover those two throughout the series. But I hope you notice that whenever a rapper releases a project, they start doing a shit ton of features, and a lot of voice inflections and flows and bars that they were using on their albums almost always translates over to their features, which makes sense because they were in album mode. For example, Kendrick started using that high-pitched flowing voice from Loyalty, Love, and God on a lot of his features. Lastly, in 2018, Dan was awarded a Pulitzer Prize, which apparently is an award for outstanding public service and achievement in American journalism, letters, and of course, music. A lot of people were shocked and upset that he got it for Damn. Personally, I love Damn, but I feel like To Pimp a Butterfly would have made much more sense. But like I said, this is Carter 3 moment, so everything he did was looked at as a diamond, which, by the way, as of 2021, Damn is certified 3 times platinum. Meanwhile, Devin the Dude dropped Acoustic Levitation. Jid dropped his first album, The Never Story. Mike Will Mater dropped Ransom 2, which Kendrick was also featured on. Goldlink dropped his album, At What Cost. Future dropped the remix to Mask Off, which of course Kendrick was also featured on too. Smino dropped his first album, Black Swan. Playboi Carti dropped his first album, Playboi Carti. Lil Baby dropped Perfect Timing. Kylie and Travis went into the open with their new relationship after Kylie's breakup with Tyga. And finally, Complex started their new debate show starring DJ Academics and Joe Budden.
How you doing, man?
It's good, man. First day. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gonna be interesting.
So that's pretty much it for this episode. If you made it through, thank you. And on the next episode, I'll be covering a very talented rapper who unfortunately succumbed to the pressures of internet trolls. So if you like this video and you want to see more, please Please like, share, and subscribe. And that's the end of it.